Hey LinkedIn, as a buyer myself and as somebody who spends a lot of time in B2B, thinking about B2B sales, B2B buyers and things like that, one concern I have or one thought I have is, especially with AI and ChatGPT and all this stuff, is are humans keeping up with the technology, right? So when I think about it, like is human behavior, human culture, is it keeping up with the technology, or the technology, is it kind of outpacing it? When I think about myself, sometimes you see all these different jargony things that are people are talking about online and different ways to market and get in front of people. But the reality is I often just go back to thinking about myself as a buyer, and I'm an avid reader, studier, read everything, all the news, everything that's going on with companies. But when it comes to buying it, I think about, what am I really doing? How does it really operate? How do you really get to me? How do I, buy? And it's like pretty simple. Like someone emails me something, and then or I look out and have a need or something like that, and reach out to a company, and yeah, maybe there is a compounding approach of, like, you see this or you see that, and you see different things online, and over a while you go to who you know, right? You're influenced to some degree by going to who you know, and you're it's a known quantity. Like maybe you go to Salesforce, or maybe you go to HubSpot, or maybe you go to whatever it is, whatever you're buying, health insurance, or you're going to, you need payroll, so ADP, or Paychex, whatever. But often the sequence is as simple as someone emails me, and then they call me, and then we enter into the sales cycle, and through that sales cycle there could be content and decks and different pieces, but it to me it's actually quite one-to-one. It's pretty simple, and sometimes I think that maybe people who don't sell somehow can get a little bit removed from the sales cycle and from what actually goes into it and how it really works, certainly in B2B. And yeah, there is a lot of the sales cycle that happens before it reaches sales, and it's all marketing, and that is true. There's a lot that needs to be done there, but also just like don't overthink it, and make sure that it matches up to human behavior and how people are really buying and how people are really doing research. And you do have to be sort of omnipresent and kind of be everywhere as much as you can, and I do think that's a good idea. Absolutely, I think that's a good idea. You want to influence and have thought leadership and be in front of people. I do, but you also don't want to get so sort of tech heavy and marketing heavy that it's really not aligned with the buyer behavior. Certainly, this is true in B2B. When you think about B2B, but even in B2C, we don't deal with B2C, but even when you think about B2C, I often just kind of daydream or think about how I buy and what that cycle looks like. And I think that the more you spend some time, number one, putting yourself in the shoes of the buyer, think about, when you're selling, sell as if you're the buyer, right? Think about what that buyer experience looks like, and really kind of jot that down and look at that and be real with yourself about it, and then try to mirror that process and align to that process. And the more you do that, the easier it gets, and I really don't think it's as complex as people sometimes make it out. And the other thing about it, which is interesting with all the marketing and everything that's going on, is, and I said to somebody last week, I said, no one calls me. Like, I get pretty much no phone calls. And I think about that as a CEO of a pretty significant company, and I think that that's amazing, and incredible, really. And so you kind of go back to the old methods of, like, it's nice to be able to talk to someone, or I get like no handwritten notes, and you think about that and you think it's nice every now and then to get a handwritten note. In fact, I do have a contact, Derek Peterson, he's my leasing agent. He sent me this book, and he sends me handwritten notes, and I often think, I train my sales team to be a certain way as well. I often think that he's doing it better than almost anybody I ever interact with. And so props to you, Derek, if you watch this. But almost no one does that, and is really doing it well. And so when you come across somebody who does do it well and understands like relationships and human behavior, that goes a long way. And so just remember that when you think about your stakeholder or the buyer or whatever. I think it's important, if there's a takeaway from this video, I think it's important to mirror the human behavior as much as you can, and really put yourself in the shoes of the buyer, and don't get so, maybe invested in the tech and the marketing and blah 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 blah, that you kind of lose sight of the person buying, and what that journey really looks like.